Can you see my screen?
No,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Screen is not
Not yet.
visible. Notepad is
No,
there.
ma'am.
Okay, it will come. Don't worry.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
It's visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Now it's
Yes,
visible.
ma'am.
Okay, okay. So now we will start with the structure of the cell. So write down in your notebook structure of the cell. Can you all see everyone?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So today we are starting with the structure of the cell. We have already discussed that the cell varies in the shape and size, and there are two different types of the cells. Classified on the basis of complexity and
Ma'am, your
Ma'am, your voice is not
yes.
clear.
What happened?
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
your
again
voice
your
is
voice
not
is not
clear.
clear.
Yes. Voice is not clear. Why the voice is not clear today? Maybe some network problem because that's everything I have done. Okay. So try to see the screen and write down. So the cell consists of the following components. First one, write down the cell is covered by the cell wall. Cell is covered by the cell wall. Second, inner to the cell wall, there is cell membrane. Are you getting, children, what I am writing?
yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Cell
Yes,
ma'am.
membrane or plasma membrane. You all know that the cell covering is known as the plasma membrane. Now, inside the plasma membrane, inside the plasma membrane, we find the fluid is filled and that fluid contains the different cell organelles. So we call the whole cell content is known as the protoplasm. So the third component of the cell is the protoplasm. Now this protoplasm consists of the cytoplasm. Next, the cell.
nucleus.
Yes,
Cytoplasm.
cytoplasm will have inside it the different cell organelles. And the third thing that is present, that is your cell inclusions. Did you understand, everyone? The cell consists of the cell wall. The second, inner to the cell wall, there is a cell membrane or a plasma membrane which forms the covering of the cell. And inside the cell membrane, the content, the whole content of the cell, we call it as protoplasm. The protoplasm includes the fluid which is filled, known as the cytoplasm, and in the cytoplasm, the membrane bound cell organelles are present, and the other things are the cell inclusions. Now, what is the difference between organelles and inclusions? Try to understand that those membrane bound structures which are performing some metabolic function, we call it as organelles, and the membrane bound structures which are used for storage purpose, we call it as inclusions. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Repeat once
Yes,
again, ma'am.
ma'am.
Ma'am, repeat.
Ma'am, can you repeat again?
I'm
Ma'am, can you say it
I'm
aloud again?
repeating. Cell or, okay, cell organelles perform the metabolic function. Perform some metabolic function or help in some metabolic process. They perform some metabolic function, but the cell inclusions try to understand they are meant for storage. They don't perform any function. Okay, like the respiration, protein synthesis, digestion, that all will be performed by the organelles. An example, the vacuoles are there. Vacuoles are there. Vacuoles will come under inclusions. Okay, they do the storage one. What do they do? Yes, so
Storage.
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 So this much is clear to everyone.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Now we will start with the first component. So what is the first component?
Cell wall.
Cell wall. Okay. So now you can check up what is cell wall. So which cells have got the cell wall, children?
plant cell.
Plant
Ah,
cell.
okay.
Plant cell.
Plant cell.
The plant cell, fungal cell, bacterial cell, it is present. So you can write down present in the plant cell. Then what else I said?
Bacterial cell.
Fungal
Fungal cell.
Bacterial cell.
Fungal
Bacterial
cell.
cell.
Okay. Then fungal cell.
Algae cell.
Fungal cell you understood, na? मतलब cells
Yes, ma'am.
फंगस के है ना फंगस के सेल्स को अपन फंगल सेल्स बोल रहे हैं so they will have the cell wall and depending upon this you will find the cell wall is made up of plant cell is made up of what do you know plant cell made up of
Cellulose.
very good cellulose so you can write down the plant cell wall लिख लो plant present in the plant cell is made up of cellulose. Okay, now we'll see the other one, bacterial cell. In the bacterial cell, you will find it is made up of okay, write down chitin. Okay, bacterial cell wall made up of the chitin or the pectin, and fungal cell it is made up of the fungal cellulose. Fungal cellulose. So these are the different types of the carbohydrates, children. Okay, we have done the 5 components: carbohydrates, proteins, fats, so proteins and vitamins. Out of this, the cell wall is made up of the carbohydrate, the different ones. Okay, the cellulose, then the chitin, the that is fungal cellulose is there. Okay, now we will take up the next thing. And what is the function of this cell wall? Can you tell me the function of the
Ma'am,
cell
to
wall?
protect the cell.
So write down function.
Ma'am,
So
to
what is
protect the cell.
correct? It is protective in function. It is protective in function. So it will protect the cell. Now we'll take up the cell membrane. Second component. Cell membrane. So cell membrane or the plasma membrane, it forms the outer covering of all the cells. Forms outer covering of all the cells. Can you all understand, everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Forms the outer covering of all the cells and it gives shape to the cell. You can write down gives shape to the cell and is protective in function.
Ma'am, repeat.
Protective in function and is protective in function. Then the next write down. So we are discussing the functions of the cell membrane. First function is what? Forms the outer covering of the cell, gives shape to the cell. Number three, protective in function. Okay, so you can understand we have written three functions. Then it is semi-permeable. Very important property is semi-permeable. Anyone knows what is the meaning of semi-permeable?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, they
You'll have studied
It
in
is
the
allows
porous in nature.
or exit out of the cell.
again.
to move.
It allows certain particles to enter and
It allows the some substances, some molecules to go in and some will be prevented from entering. So this way it is partly permeable or semi-permeable. We also call it selectively permeable. So you can write down or selectively permeable. Selectively permeable means it will select the substances and will allow them only to move in and out of the cell. Now we'll take up the next thing, next other function. It helps in transport of substances. Since it is selectively permeable, it will help in transport of substances. It helps in transport or substances. कहाँ से कहाँ? Can you tell me, children?
I'm from inside
and
of
in
cell
and
to
out of the cell.
outside.
From inside to outside and from outside to inside. That transport will be done through this cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Okay, since it is semi-permeable. So there will be selective transport. What type of the transport it will show? The selective transport. Is it clear to everyone? This much. Now we'll try to
Yes,
understand the
ma'am.
structure of this cell membrane. So write down the structure. We have discussed the functions, okay? General functions. Now write down structure. So we will try to understand what is the structure of the plasma membrane. So the plasma membrane, we describe its structure, that is trilaminar. It is trilaminar and lipoproteinaceous. So what you have to remember, two words you will remember, children, for describing the structure of the cell membrane. That is, it is trilaminar. You write in front of it, it is trilaminar.
And what is the meaning of trilaminar?
I am coming to that, children. Okay, try to understand two words. Trilaminar and lipoproteinaceous. I want someone to, Kinjal, repeat the two words.
Trilaminar,
Kinjal Bharil.
trilaminar and lipoproteinaceous.
Break the word and then say lipoproteinaceous. Yes, Harish can say. Sorry.
Lipoproteinaceous,
And the first word,
trilaminar.
trilaminar. Okay, so what is the meaning of it? Try to understand. When we say trilaminar, means made up of. So you can write down that is made up of three layers. Made up of three layers. Okay, that is the meaning of trilaminar. Tri means three. Okay, lamina means the layer.
Ma'am, but it is
Yes.
Ma'am, but it is bilayer, no?
No,
Cell
it is
membrane.
trilaminar. Okay, it is trilaminar. Now try to understand how it is made up of three layers. Okay, and the lipoproteinaceous. So trilaminar, you can write down how so it is having how the three layers are there. Try to understand. It has the two protein layers. Two protein layers, sorry, two protein layers outside, and between the two protein layers there is lipid bilayer. Two protein layers outside. Sorry. And between the two protein layers, between the two protein layers, there is lipid bilayer. There is lipid bilayer. Did you understand now what I am saying? ऊपर और नीचे प्रोटीन की दो लेयर्स रहती है और उन दो प्रोटीन लेयर्स के बीच में लिपिड की दो लेयर्स रहती है. That's why we are calling lipid bilayer. So in a way, total how many layers we have in the cell membrane?
Three.
Three.
Three layers.
Three.
ऊपर के दो प्रोटीन
Three.
लेयर और बीच में दो लिपिड लेयर. बीच में दो क्या प्रेजेंट है?
Lipid
Lipid
layer.
layer.
Lipids
Lipid
means
layer.
lipid layer. Okay. So now try to understand that how. Yes.
Ma'am, what is the meaning of bilayer?
Bilayer means two layers. लिपिड के मॉलिक्यूल्स दो लेयर में अरेंज्ड है. Okay, lipid bilayer we are calling why? Because in between the two protein layers, the lipid layer which is present, in that we will find the fat molecules or the lipid molecules arranged in two layers. The molecules of the fats are arranged in two layers. So we are calling lipid bilayer. Is it very clear to everyone this much?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes,
Now
ma'am.
I hope you
Yes,
understood
ma'am.
why we are calling is lipoproteinaceous, because these three layers are made up of lipids and proteins. Made up of
Proteins. Lipid and
And protein.
Lipids
lipid and
and proteins.
proteins.
children understand lipid means fats. What is the meaning of lipids?
Fat.
Fat.
Fats.
You
Fat.
know, yeah, you all know carbohydrates, proteins, fats. So it is made up of proteins and fats. And we call it as lipoproteinaceous. मतलब इन दो वर्ड से हम पूरा डिस्क्राइब कर देते हैं that the plasma membrane is trilaminar and lipoproteinaceous. How it is trilaminar? I hope you got it. That it consists of two protein layers. Okay, and between the two protein layers, there is a lipid layer. In that lipid layer, you can write it in bracket. In that lipid layer, the fat molecules are arranged in two layers. Fat molecules or lipid molecules, lipid molecules are arranged in two layers. Is this very clear why we are calling it as the lipid bilayer, children?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now we'll try to understand that what type of the proteins are present. So there are so protein layer. I will be sending you the diagram of the cell membrane children. Okay, and that diagram you will
Not
put in your
clear.
notebook.
Voice is not clear.
Okay.
Your voice is not clear.
वॉइस फिर डिस्टर्ब हो रही है. ओके, until now it was okay.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Now it's clear.
So in the protein layer you find that two types of proteins are there. Two types of proteins are there. Two types of proteins, we call it intrinsic protein and the other one extrinsic protein. Okay, so intrinsic protein and extrinsic protein. So intrinsic proteins are those which are present in that lipid layer. मतलब lipid के बीच में भी वो चले जाते हैं. They are the big molecules and they form the channels. Okay, and the in extrinsic protein they are forming only the covering of it. Okay, वो बाहर की तरफ ही बस present है, वो lipid के layer में embedded नहीं रहते हैं. Is it clear? So what are the two types of the proteins?
Intrinsic.
Intrinsic
Protein and
and intrinsic.
So intrinsic you can write down. They are present. So they form the channels. They form channels. And present in lipid layer. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Form channels and present in lipid layer. Okay, and the other one, the extrinsic protein, it is present outside. You can write down extrinsic proteins present outside. So when we are saying forming the channels, so they will help in transport. The intrinsic proteins help in transport. Help in transport of water soluble substances. Help in the transport of water soluble substances. Clear to everyone this much?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Now we
ma'am.
take up lipid one. So lipid already I told you. In the lipid layer, how the lipid layer is present. Lipid do I said that bilayer. Why we are calling bilayer?
Because it consists
Ma'am,
of two
because
layers.
fat molecules are arranged in two layers.
And that molecules arranged in two layers. In two layers.
Ma'am, lipid bilayer is lipid bilayers. Fat molecules are arranged in two layers. Now, not
Okay.
lipid layer. So you must also write lipid bilayer here.
अच्छा, यू आर गेटिंग कंफ्यूज. तो हम उसको बीच में लिपिड लेयर ही बोलते हैं. याद रखो, उस लिपिड लेयर को हम एक ही लेयर कंसीडर करते हैं. इज इट क्लियर? That's
Yes.
why it's better you write down lipid layer. Okay, lipid layer in the beginning तो आपने लिख ही लिया है कि lipid bilayer. Okay, तो वही lipid bilayer को ही अपन lipid layer ही बोलेंगे. But it should be known to you that it is arranged in that lipid layer. Fat molecules are arranged in two layers. Arranged in two layers. Is it clear to you? आप
Yes,
lipid
ma'am.
ये तो भी आपको समझना है कि सेल मेम्ब्रेन में लिपिड का लेयर में फैट मॉलिक्यूल्स अरेंज इन टू लेयर्स. ओके.
Yes, ma'am.
हाँ, Okay, with their head facing towards the protein layer. Heads facing towards the proteins and tails facing each other towards the center.
Ma'am, can you show us the diagram of lipid?
I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll be sending the pic in the WhatsApp also, children. Okay, so that diagram you all make it.
Yes, ma'am.
That is important. So now you can see that all have noted this much.
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Can you see the screen, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the structure which we have done, children, it is known as the fluid mosaic model. You can write down. It is known as fluid mosaic model. So this is the structure of the cell membrane. Try to see here. These are the proteins. Okay, जो बाहर की तरफ है वो proteins है. And can you see these protein molecule? ये बड़ा protein molecule mark किया गया है. This is your intrinsic protein. ओके और जो बाहर की तरफ है they are the extrinsic protein. वो और these, can you see these two things? So head, this circle is the head. Okay, this is the structure of a fat molecule. Head is facing towards outside, मतलब protein layer की तरफ. और ये दो part, can you see these two structures? These are known as the tails. Okay, so the head faces towards outside, towards the protein layer, and the tail faces each other. Is the structure clear to you, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the lipid, and which structure we call it? Fluid mosaic model of plasma membrane. So this is the most accepted structure of the cell membrane. And what is it called? Fluid mosaic model. What is it called?
Fluid mosaic.
Fluid mosaic model.
Fluid mosaic model.
फ्लूइड मोजाइक याद रखो क्योंकि लिपिड इज अ फ्लूइड. ओके, उसमें मोजाइक के जैसे क्या चीज प्रेजेंट है? ये दीज बिग वंस द प्रोटीन मॉलिक्यूल्स. ओके, और ये बड़े बड़े जो दिख रहे हैं ऊपर से लेकर नीचे तक जा रहे हैं, मींस फ्रॉम आउटसाइड टिल द इनसाइड. These only we are calling it as channels. Okay, why you are calling channels? Because इनके through ही बाहर से अंदर या अंदर से बाहर the transport of water soluble substances will take place. Is it very clear to you, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
क्योंकि फैट लेयर में से वाटर सॉल्युबल सब्सटेंसेस तो फैट में से नहीं जा पाएंगे, तो दे विल बी ट्रांसपोर्टेड through these intrinsic proteins. So intrinsic proteins are also called permeases. So I'll write down, okay, this model name, remember, it is known as fluid mosaic model. Fluid mosaic model of the plasma membrane. And what I was telling, that the intrinsic proteins are also called intrinsic proteins are called permeases. Okay, or we also call it as carrier proteins. What you call it? Carrier proteins, because they are helping in the transport. Clear this much to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So for today, we
Yes,
will do
ma'am.
only this much, that is the cell membrane structure. So I am stopping. All have noted the whole structure of the cell membrane.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
The
Yes,
diagram,
ma'am.
diagram I'll send it and everyone draw it in the notebook. Okay, so I'm stopping the sharing. Okay, now if anyone wants to ask anything, you can ask and note down the questions quickly. Question number 1 will be, name the components of the cell. Write down, name the components of the cell. Then question number 2 for today, describe the structure of the cell membrane with the help of labeled diagram. Describe the structure of the cell membrane with the help of labeled diagram. Noted all of you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So with this we
Yes,
finish
ma'am.
up today. Okay, I'm stopping the recording.